So Israel has quickly moved from a bombing campaign in Gaza to now a new ground invasion. Let's go ahead and put this up on the screen. This is their defense minister warning the residents of Gaza with total devastation. He says, this is your final warning. The first Sinwar destroyed Gaza. The second Sinwar will bring upon it total ruin. The Israeli Air Force's attack against Hamas terrorists was only the first step. What follows will be far harsher, and you will bear the full cost. Evacuation of the population from combat zones will soon resume. If all Israeli hostages are not released and Hamas is not kicked out of Gaza, Israel will act with force you have not known before. Take the advice of the U.S. president, return the hostages, kick out Hamas, and new options will open up for you, including relocation to other parts of the world for those who choose. The alternative is destruction and total devastation. So, obviously there's no real choice being offered here. They are headed towards that total devastation. And we already know that, they've been preparing for this ground invasion, and it has in fact begun. We can take a look at this map up on the screen. This will be familiar to some of you. You've got them bisecting Gaza in two. Once again, he warned there, that people are going to have to be forced to flee from the rubble that's left of their homes. Once again, displaced. There has been a siege in place now for, I believe, over 2 weeks. So no food, no fuel, no medicine is coming in. Yesterday, I saw an eyewitness report on the ground about 7 children at a single hospital having to have amputations with no anesthesia whatsoever. That's what we're talking about here. So Saagar returned to absolute full force. There are some domestic political ramifications in terms of Israel. You have a good number of the population that want the Israeli government to focus on return of the hostages. Obviously, when you have this sort of all-out assault and ground invasion with massive death tolls like what we saw at the beginning of this war, that is not only putting Palestinians at risk, it is also putting the remaining hostages at risk as well. So yesterday there were protests in the streets. We can put this up on the screen from the New York Times. Thousands of Israelis gathered on Wednesday outside the Parliament building to renew a ceasefire deal in Gaza to protest political moves by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, including firing the head of the Shin Bet intelligence agency. The convergence of popular anger over both domestic and national security issues came a day after Israel carried out deadly aerial attacks across the Gaza Strip in what Netanyahu said was only the beginning. The strikes ended a temporary truce with Hamas that began in January and added to uncertainty over the fate of hostages still held there. Bibi has his own obviously his own domestic political concerns, but he has this long pushed off corruption trial that was about to begin, was about to have to give testimony. And again, oh, whoops, now we're at war again, so won't have to do that. So it's very naked to a lot of Israelis how much of the war plan is about Bibi's own personal interest versus, like I said, a lot of them, it's not that they're worried about the brutality versus vis-a-vis Palestinians, predominantly not, but they are worried about being able to get their own hostages back in one piece.
Yeah, there's also a scandal in Israel right now where Bibi fired the head of the Shin Bet, like their domestic agency, and it's actually causing some like similar court battles between the Israeli courts saying that it was done illegally, which has now led to some deep state convo, which is genuinely hilarious. Let's put C3, please, up on the screen from Benjamin Netanyahu. He says, in America and in Israel, when a strong right-wing leader wins an election, the leftist deep state weaponizes the justice system to thwart the people's will. They won't win in either place. We stand strong together, right? So tying himself directly to our own domestic political situation, I guess fairly, considering how much influence they have over here. But people should always remember, look,
I think
Israel...
Elon replied to that too.
Oh, did he?
That's right.
Cool.
Something like that.
Yeah, that's one of his favorites.
It's like,
cool.
Oh my God, dude, you are the deep state. Like, how much of the new, revealed redactions in the JFK files are about Israel and
Well, yeah. We're going to have Jefferson Morley on. He's a great journalist about the JFK files. But overall, it's kind of disappointing. And it is something I always tell people because they're like, oh, the files are... And then I'm like, guys, with 9/11, with JFK, with the UFOs and all that, we almost kind of... UFOs maybe aside, there's a lot more we could learn. But there's no government document that's like, there are visiting aliens. There's no government document that says we shot JFK. A lot of the circumstantial evidence documents and all that, it's all out there. Just in terms of the fact that the official narrative is completely BS. And for the CIA elements and all of that, the story's been effectively known since the 1990s, I would say. And, it was obviously popularized, and a lot of people really paid attention after Oliver Stone's movie. But even before that, the whole Jim Garrison investigation, Americans by and large didn't believe the story and thought it was a conspiracy very, very early on. So anyway, it is kind of disappointing just the way that it's all shaken out.
On the BB deep state thing, I mean, why wouldn't he say this? Because it's worked so well. Even SBF going on.
Yeah, that's right, on Tucker's show.
Yeah, on Tucker's show. And, certainly the Tates portraying themselves as some victims of some deep state witch hunt. Russell Brand comes to mind as well. Eric Adams in New York comes to mind as well. So tried and true strategy. So why wouldn't BB, who certainly understands domestic political strategies here within the U.S. context, why wouldn't he also go ahead and make himself a victim of the deep state as well?
It.
Just incredible.
He knows what he's doing.
Yeah,
right,
absolutely incredible.
Put C4 up there on the screen as well. This is from Ken Klippenstein. This was actually really interesting. It's basically about the, quote, Iran war plan. And what Ken can report, according to some of his sources and others, is that inside of the Pentagon, some war game plans are now beginning to take shape. Now, obviously, that's not something that means it's going to happen. And of course, there's war plans for everything. But, quote, the new war plan construct is itself new in that multilateral components, including Israel working in unison with the Gulf partners, either indirectly or directly, are now part of it. And the plan also includes many different contingencies and levels of war, from crisis action, meaning response to events, to, quote, deliberate planning, which will set scenarios that flow from the crises out of control, including and up to, obviously, like invasion, full concept plan, full operations. Look, obviously somebody ordered those plans to be renewed. For what purpose? We don't know. Does bring to mind, gosh, I'm blanking on the guy's name, Wesley something. He was the general. He was the general after the War on Terror, who came out and talked about war plans that were for Iraq and for all the rest of the Middle East. People often point back to that one as evidence of like planning for multiple invasions and going forward. But just anytime you see something like this, you should, of course, take interest. Why has this been ordered? For what purpose? Because the alternative could be to order some revolutionary diplomacy at the very same time. We do know that Trump has apparently sent a letter to the Ayatollah being like, we want to deal within the next 2 months or something, but we haven't seen any movement on that yet.
No, quite the contrary. I mean, I think because they're also re-implementing the maximum pressure strategy. And so I think that has, I don't know that Iran was going to be that amenable to making a deal at this point anyway, given that they already made a deal and it backfired because we pulled out, Trump 1.0 pulled out of the deal. Biden failed to get back in or really show that much interest in getting back in. And now you've got even more sanctions being applied to them and threats coming from the White House. So it's not looking great, but listen, you never know. The other thing that was really troubling that Ken was able to report, we can put this up on the screen, is as part of those war plans, they include a nuclear option. And he points specifically to this comment that Trump made. And Trump said this thing, he said, we can't let Iran have a nuclear weapon. I would rather have a peace deal than the other option, but the other option will solve the problem. And Ken thinks this may be an allusion to, like a sort of vague allusion towards this nuclear war plan, which has been developed as part of this larger, menu of options with regard to an all-out war on Iran. So obviously all of this is deeply troubling. And just to give you the latest few updates from on the ground in Israel as well, just to be as current as possible here. You did have some, Hamas was able to fire some rockets at Tel Aviv, which obviously it's wild that at this point, given how much destruction across the entire Gaza Strip, that they still have that kind of capability. And per Haaretz, you also have updated death toll, just massive numbers of Palestinians being killed this week by Israel. Over 710 Palestinians killed, 900 wounded in Israeli strikes in the Gaza Strip just in the last 48 hours. Some of the patients died due to a lack of medical equipment, says a spokesperson for one hospital. And thousands of Israelis continuing to march and protest in the street as this ground invasion has officially begun in northern Gaza. The bombing campaign obviously is all out and kind of no end in sight here. At this point, there isn't even a pretense of looking to negotiate a new ceasefire deal or looking to get back to phase 2, et cetera. As we said when we covered this earlier in the week, Bibi always made it clear he didn't really intend to go to phase 2. The question mark was whether the Trump administration was going to actually apply pressure to force them to go to phase 2. And at this point, it's pretty clear we have our answer there.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.